Venice was shrouded in a light autumn fog when Lorenzo Bellini, one of the most powerful men in the city, looked out of the window of his penthouse, located right on the Grand Canal. He owned historic buildings, luxury hotels, and an immense fortune. But that morning, as he looked down on the city, a deep emptiness assailed him. Before continuing, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell. Lorenzo had grown up in luxury. His father, a successful entrepreneur in the art world, had left him an empire, which he had managed to make prosper with cunning and vision. But in recent years, the enthusiasm for success and power had gradually faded. The exclusive parties, the vacations in the most beautiful places in the world, the luxury cars, none of this gave him joy anymore. He felt saturated. The people around him admired him for what he represented, but no one really knew the man behind the Bellini name. Lorenzo had become a master at masking his discomfort. His relationships, especially his romantic ones, had been a failure. Women sought him out for his money, his social position, never for who he really was. Solitude, masked by luxury and fame, had turned into a gilded prison from which there seemed to be no escape. One morning, while he was reflecting in the silence of his attic, he was interrupted by the familiar voice of Elena, the housekeeper who had worked for him for years. Elena was a mother figure who had seen him grow up, and for Lorenzo, her affection was a safe haven. "Lorenzo," she said softly, "I've seen you upset for days. What's wrong?" He turned to her, sighing deeply. "I don't know, Elena. I have everything a man could want, and yet I feel like I have nothing. I've built an empire, but it doesn't give me satisfaction anymore." Elena looked at him with understanding. "Maybe," she said wisely, "it's because you've been focusing on the wrong things. Money can buy you almost anything, but not what really matters. You need something more authentic, Lorenzo." Those words hit Lorenzo deeply, but he still didn't know how to change. "What should I do?" he asked in a tone of desperation. "Strip off everything that defines you as the rich and powerful man," Elena advised him. "Leave the house like any other man, without the burden of your name. Only then will you discover what you are truly missing." The next day, Lorenzo made a bold decision. He dressed in simple clothes, a wool jacket, jeans, and comfortable shoes. He left his expensive watch at home, his wallet full of credit cards, and went out into the streets of Venice like an ordinary man, eager to find a bit of authenticity. He walked through the narrow streets of the city, passing unnoticed in the crowd, feeling a freedom he had not felt in a long time. Away from his possessions and luxuries, he began to see the world with new eyes. It was a strange feeling, but liberating. Around mid-morning, a light rain began to fall. Taken by surprise, Lorenzo sought shelter in a small cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of Campo Santa Margherita. The place was modest, with wooden tables and a welcoming atmosphere. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and freshly baked pastries filled the air. He sat by the window, watching the rain hitting the glass. It was a simple scene, but for the first time in a long time, Lorenzo felt at peace. He didn't yet know that this place would soon change his life. Shortly after, a young woman with brown hair and bright eyes entered the place. She was wearing an apron over a t-shirt and jeans. There was something about her presence that immediately caught Lorenzo's attention. Even though the rain had wet her hair, her smile was not affected at all. He approached the counter, greeting the few customers present, and then headed toward Lorenzo's table. "Good morning," he said in a kind tone. "Can I offer you something hot?" Lorenzo, surprised by his naturalness, responded with a smile. "A coffee, please, and can you recommend a dessert?" "We're famous for our lemon cake," she said. "It's very popular with customers." Lorenzo nodded, watching her every move as she walked away to prepare the order. There was a natural grace in her gestures, a simplicity that fascinated him. When she returned with the coffee and a slice of cake, Lorenzo couldn't help but notice the care with which she had arranged everything. "Thank you," he said, savoring the coffee. It was different from the pretentious coffees he was used to. It was simple, but true, just like the woman who served it. The young woman noticed his interest and smiled. "I've never seen you here before," she said. "Is this your first time here?" Lorenzo hesitated for a moment, but then answered honestly, "Yes, I was walking in the rain and took refuge here." She smiled, visibly pleased by his compliment. "My name is Chiara," she said, holding out her hand. "Giacomo," Lorenzo replied, using a different name to maintain his cover. He didn't want to be Lorenzo Bellini that day, just an ordinary man. Their exchange was simple but intense, as if there was an immediate connection between them. From that day on, Lorenzo returned every morning to that little cafe. Every meeting with Chiara was a refuge for him. They talked about simple things, the weather, the city, and his life in the place. He discovered that Chiara had a dream, to open a bookstore with a small cafe, a place where people could take refuge in the world of books. Lorenzo was fascinated by her passion, by her ability to find happiness in the little things. For the first time in years, he felt attracted to a person for who they were, not for what they represented. But as time passed, the weight of his true identity began to make itself felt. Chiara, for her part, began to notice a mystery in Giacomo. There was something about him that didn't add up, a nuance that made him different from the other clients. But she trusted him and in time hoped that he would open up completely. One day, while sitting in the cafeteria, Lorenzo overheard two customers talking about Lorenzo Bellini, the powerful Venetian businessman. "I can't believe how influential Bellini is in the city," one of them said. "He's about to close another $1 million deal." Lorenzo's face hardened. Chiara, who was next to him, immediately noticed the change in his expression. She knew there was something he hadn't told her yet, and that name spoken by the customers seemed strangely familiar. Later, as they were walking along the canal, Chiara suddenly stopped. "Is there something you're hiding from me?" she asked, looking into his eyes. Lorenzo knew he couldn't lie anymore. His heart was pounding in his chest. With a deep breath, he confessed, "I'm not who you think I am. My real name is Lorenzo Bellini." The silence that followed was terrible. Chiara stared at him in disbelief, trying to understand the meaning of those words. "Did you lie to me?" she asked, her voice cracking with pain. Lorenzo shook his head. "I didn't mean to deceive you. I just wanted you to see me for who I really am, not for my name." Chiara looked at him with tears in her eyes. "How can I trust you now?" she asked, before turning and walking away. Lorenzo stood there alone, heartbroken, as he watched her walk away into the Venetian night, knowing that perhaps he had lost her forever. Did you like this story? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching the video till the end, and see you next story.